Xi Jinping is a Chinese politician who has served as the General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party and Chairman of the Central Military Commission, and thus as the paramount leader of China, since 2012. Xi has also served as President of the People's Republic of China since 2013. The son of Chinese Communist veteran Xi Zongxuan, Xi was exiled to rural Yanchuan County as a teenager following his father's purge during the Cultural Revolution. He lived in a yaedong in the village of Liangjiahe, Shaanxi Province, where he joined the CCP after several failed attempts and worked as the local party secretary. After studying chemical engineering at Tsinghua University as a worker-peasant soldier student, Xi rose through the ranks politically in China's coastal provinces. Xi was governor of Fujian from 1999 to 2002, before becoming governor and party secretary of neighboring Zhejiang from 2002 to 2007. Following dismissal of the party secretary of Shanghai, Chen Lianjiu, Xi was transferred to replace him for a brief period in 2007. He subsequently joined the Politburo Standing Committee of the CCP the same year and served as first secretary of the Central Secretariat in October 2007. In 2008, he was designated as Hu Jintao's presumed successor as paramount leader. To that end, Xi was appointed vice president of the PRC and vice chairman of the CMC. He officially received the title of Leadership Corps from the CCP in 2016. Xi is the first CCP General Secretary born after the establishment of the PRC. Since assuming power, Xi has introduced far-ranging measures to enforce party discipline and to impose internal unity. His anti-corruption campaign led to the downfall of prominent incumbent and retired CCP officials, including a former member of the PSC. He has also enacted or promoted a more aggressive foreign policy, particularly with regard to China's relations with the U.S., the Nine-Dash Line in the South China Sea, the Sino-Indian border dispute, and the political status of Taiwan. He has sought to expand China's African and Eurasian influence through the Belt and Road Initiative. Xi has expanded support for state-owned enterprises, advanced military-civil fusion, overseen targeted poverty alleviation programs, and has attempted to reform the property sector. He has also promoted common prosperity, a series of policies designed with stated goal to increase equality, and used the term to justify a broad crackdown and major slew of regulations against the tech and tutoring sectors in 2021. Xi met with Taiwanese President Ma Ying-jeou in 2015, the first time PRC and Republic of China leaders met, though relations deteriorated after Tsai Ing-wen of the Democratic Progressive Party won the presidential elections in 2016. He responded to the COVID-19 pandemic in mainland China with a zero-COVID approach, continuing it even after most other countries had shifted to a mitigation strategy. Xi also oversaw the passage of a national security law in Hong Kong, clamping down on political opposition in the city, especially pro-democracy activists. Often described as an authoritarian leader by political and academic observers, Xi's tenure has included an increase of censorship and mass surveillance, deterioration in human rights, including the internment of 1 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang, a cult of personality developing around Xi, and the removal of term limits for the presidency in 2018. Xi's political ideas and principles, known as Xi Jinping thought, have been incorporated into the party and national constitutions, and he has emphasized the importance of national security and the need for CCP leadership over the country. As the central figure of the fifth generation of leadership of the PRC, Xi has centralized institutional power by taking on multiple positions, including chairing the National Security Commission and new steering committees on economic and social reforms, military restructuring and modernization, and the Internet. He and the CCP Central Committee passed a historical resolution in November 2021, the third such resolution after Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. In October 2022, Xi secured a third term as CCP General Secretary, the second leader of the CCP to do so. Early life and education. Xi Jinping was born in Beijing on June 15, 1953, the second son of Xi Zongxun and his wife Qi Xin. After the founding of the PRC in 1949, Xi's father held a series of posts, including party propaganda chief, vice premier, and vice chairperson of the National People's Congress. Xi had two older sisters, Xiao, born in 1949, and Anan, born in 1952. Xi's father was from Fuping County, Shaanxi, and Xi could further trace his patrilineal descent from Xieying in Dengzhou, Henan. Xi went to the Beijing No. 25 school, and then Beijing Beihai School, in the 1960s. He became friends with Liu He, who attended Beijing No. 101 school in the same district, who later became China's vice premier and a close advisor to Xi after he became China's paramount leader. In 1963, when he was aged 10, his father was purged from the CCP and sent to work in a factory in Luoyang, Henan. In May 1966, the Cultural Revolution cut short Xi's secondary education when all secondary classes were halted for students to criticize and fight their teachers. Student militants ransacked the Xi family home, and one of Xi's sisters, Xi Heping, committed suicide from the pressure. Later, his mother was forced to publicly denounce his father, as he was paraded before a crowd as an enemy of the revolution. His father was later imprisoned in 1968 when Xi was aged 15. Without the protection of his father, Xi was sent to work in Liangjiahe village, Wenenyi, Yanchuan County, Yan'an, Shaanxi, in 1969 in Mao Zedong's Down to the Countryside movement. He worked as the party secretary of Liangjiahe, where he lived in a cave house. According to people who knew him, this experience led him to feel affinity with the rural poor. After a few months, unable to stand rural life, he ran away to Beijing. He was arrested during a crackdown on deserters from the countryside and sent to a work camp to dig ditches, but later returned to the village, spending a total of 7 years there. The misfortunes and suffering of his family in his early years hardened Xi's view of politics. During an interview in 2000, he said, "People who have little contact with power, who are far from it, always see these things as mysterious and novel. But what I see is not just the superficial things, the power, the flowers, the glory, the applause. I see the bullpens and how people can blow hot and cold. I understand politics on a deeper level." The bullpens was a reference to Red Guards detention houses during the Cultural Revolution. After being rejected 7 times, Xi joined the Communist Youth League of China in 1971 by befriending a local official. He reunited with his father in 1972, because of a family reunion ordered by Premier Zhou Enlai. From 1973, he applied to join the CCP 10 times and was finally accepted on his 10th attempt in 1974. From 1975 to 1979, Xi studied chemical engineering at Tsinghua University as a worker peasant soldier student in Beijing. The engineering majors there spent about 15% of their time studying Marxism-Leninism, Mao Zedong thought, and 5% of their time doing farm work and learning from the People's Liberation Army. Rise to power. From 1979 to 1982, Xi served as secretary for his father's former subordinate Geng Biao, the then vice premier and secretary general of the CMC. In 1982, he was sent to Zhengding County in Hebei as deputy party secretary of Zhengding County. He was promoted in 1983 to secretary, becoming the top official of the county. Xi subsequently served in 4 provinces during his regional political career: Hebei, Fujian, Zhejiang, and Shanghai. Xi held posts in the Fuzhou Municipal Party Committee and became the president of the party school in Fuzhou in 1990. In 1997, he was named an alternate member of the 15th Central Committee of the CCP. However, of the 151 alternate members of the Central Committee elected at the 15th Party Congress, Xi received the lowest number of votes in favor, placing him last in the rankings of members, ostensibly due to his status as a princeling. From 1998 to 2002, Xi studied Marxist theory and ideological education in Tsinghua University, graduating with a doctorate in law and ideology in 2002. In 1999, he was promoted to the office of Vice-Governor of Fujian, and became governor a year later. In Fujian, Xi made efforts to attract investment from Taiwan and to strengthen the private sector of the provincial economy. In February 2000, he and then Provincial Party Secretary Chen Minji were called before the top members of PSC General Secretary Jiang Zemin, Premier Zhu Rongji, Vice President Hu Jintao and Discipline Inspection Secretary Wei Jianxing to explain aspects of the Yuanhua scandal. In 2002, Xi left Fujian and took up leading political positions in neighboring Zhejiang. He eventually took over as Provincial Party Committee Secretary after several months as acting governor, occupying a top provincial office for the first time in his career. In 2002, he was elected a full member of the 16th Central Committee, marking his ascension to the national stage. While in Zhejiang, Xi presided over reported growth rates averaging 14% per year. His career in Zhejiang was marked by a tough and straightforward stance against corrupt officials. This earned him a name in the national media and drew the attention of China's top leaders. Following the dismissal of Shanghai Party Secretary Chen Lianjiu in September 2006 due to a Social Security Fund scandal, Xi was transferred to Shanghai in March 2007, where he was the party secretary there for 7 months. In Shanghai, Xi avoided controversy and was known for strictly observing party discipline. For example, Shanghai administrators attempted to earn favor with him by arranging a special train to shuttle him between Shanghai and Hangzhou for him to complete handing off his work to his successor as Zhejiang Party Secretary Zhao Hongzhu. However, Xi reportedly refused to take the train, citing a loosely enforced party regulation that stipulated that special trains can only be reserved for national leaders. While in Shanghai, he worked on preserving unity of the local party organization. He pledged there would be no purges during his administration, despite the fact many local officials were thought to have been implicated in the Chen Lianjiu corruption scandal. On most issues, Xi largely echoed the line of the central leadership. Politburo Standing Committee member. Xi was appointed to the 9-man PSC at the 17th Party Congress in October 2007. He was ranked above Li Keqiang, an indication that he was going to succeed Hu Jintao as China's next leader. In addition, Xi also held the first secretary of the CCP's Central Secretariat. This assessment was further supported at the 11th National People's Congress in March 2008. When Xi was elected as vice president of the PRC. Following his elevation, Xi has held a broad range of portfolios. He was put in charge of the comprehensive preparations for the 2008 Summer Olympics in Beijing, as well as being the central government's leading figure in Hong Kong and Macau affairs. In addition, he also became the new president of the Central Party School of the CCP, its cadre training and ideological education wing. In the wake of the 2008 Sichuan earthquake, Xi visited disaster areas in Shaanxi and Gansu. He made his first foreign trip as vice president to North Korea, Mongolia, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Yemen from 17 to June 25, 2008. After the Olympics, Xi was assigned the post of committee chair for the preparations of the 60th anniversary celebrations of the founding of the PRC. He was also reportedly at the helm of a top-level CCP committee dubbed the 6521 Project, which was charged with ensuring social stability during a series of politically sensitive anniversaries in 2009. Xi's position as the apparent successor to become the paramount leader was threatened with the rapid rise of Bo Xilai, the party secretary of Chongqing at the time. Bo was expected to join the PSC at the 18th Party Congress, with most expecting that he would try to eventually maneuver himself into replacing Xi. Bo's policies in Chongqing inspired imitations throughout China and received praise from Xi himself during Xi's visit to Chongqing in 2010. Records of praises from Xi were later erased after he became paramount leader. Bo's downfall would come with the Wang Lijun incident, which opened the door for Xi to come to power without challengers. Xi is considered one of the most successful members of the Princelings, a quasi-clique of politicians who are descendants of early Chinese communist revolutionaries. Former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, when asked about Xi, said he felt he was a thoughtful man who has gone through many trials and tribulations. Lee also commented, "I would put him in the Nelson Mandela class of persons. A person with enormous emotional stability who does not allow his personal misfortunes or sufferings affect his judgment. In other words, he is impressive." Former U.S. Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson described Xi as the kind of guy who knows how to get things over the goal line. Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd said that Xi has sufficient reformist, party, and military background to be very much his own man. Trips as Vice President. In February 2009, in his capacity as Vice President, Xi Jinping embarked on a tour of Latin America, visiting Mexico, Jamaica, Colombia, Venezuela, Brazil, and Malta, after which he returned to China. On February 11, 2009, while visiting Mexico, Xi spoke in front of a group of overseas Chinese and explained China's contributions during the international financial crisis, saying that it was the greatest contribution towards the whole of human race, made by China, to prevent its 1.3 billion people from hunger. He went on to remark, "There are some bored foreigners, with full stomachs, who have nothing better to do than point fingers at us. First, China doesn't export revolution. Second, China doesn't export hunger and poverty. Third, China doesn't come and cause you headaches. What more is there to be said?" The story was reported on some local television stations. The news led to a flood of discussions on Chinese internet forums, and it was reported that the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs was caught off guard by Xi's remarks, as the actual video was shot by some accompanying Hong Kong reporters and broadcast on Hong Kong TV, which then turned up on various internet video websites. In the European Union, Xi visited Belgium, Germany, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania from 7 to October 21, 2009. He visited Japan, South Korea, Cambodia, and Myanmar on his Asian trip from 14 to December 22, 2009. He later visited the United States, Ireland, and Turkey in February 2012. This visit included meeting with then U.S. President Barack Obama at the White House and then Vice President Joe Biden, and stops in California and Iowa, where he met with the family that previously hosted him during his 1985 tour as a Hebei provincial official. Leadership. Accession to top posts. A few months before his ascendancy to the party leadership, Xi disappeared from official media coverage and cancelled meeting with foreign officials for several weeks beginning on September 1, 2012, causing rumors. He then reappeared on September 15. On November 15, 2012, Xi was elected to the posts of General Secretary of the CCP and Chairman of the CMC by the 18th Central Committee of the CCP. This made him, informally, the paramount leader and the first to be born after the founding of the PRC. The following day XI led the new lineup of the PSC onto the stage in their first public appearance. The PSC was reduced from 9 to 7, with only XI and Li Keqiang retaining their seats. The other 5 members were new. In a marked departure from the common practice of Chinese leaders, XI's first speech as General Secretary was plainly worded and did not include any political slogans or mention his predecessors. XI mentioned the aspirations of the average person, remarking, "Our people expect better education, more stable jobs, better income, more reliable social security, medical care of a higher standard, more comfortable living conditions, and a more beautiful environment." XI also vowed to tackle corruption at the highest levels, alluding that it would threaten the CCP's survival. He was reticent about far-reaching economic reforms. In December 2012, XI visited Guangdong in his first trip outside Beijing since taking the party leadership. The overarching theme of the trip was to call for further economic reform and a strengthened military. XI visited the statue of Deng Xiaoping, and his trip was described as following in the footsteps of Deng's own southern trip in 1992. Which provided the impetus for further economic reforms in China after Conservative Party leaders stalled many of Deng's reforms in the aftermath of the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests and massacre. On his trip, XI consistently alluded to his signature slogan, "The Chinese Dream." This dream can be said to be the dream of a strong nation. And for the military, it is a dream of a strong military, XI told sailors. XI's trip was significant in that he departed from the established convention of Chinese leaders' travel routines in multiple ways. Rather than dining out, XI and his entourage ate regular hotel buffet. He traveled in a large van with his colleagues rather than a fleet of limousines, and did not restrict traffic on the parts of the highway he traveled. XI was elected president on March 14, 2013. In a confirmation vote by the 12th National People's Congress in Beijing. He received 2,952 for, 1 vote against, and 3 abstentions. He replaced Hu Jintao, who retired after serving 2 terms. In his new capacity as president, on March 16, 2013, XI expressed support for non-interference in China-Sri Lanka relations amid a United Nations Security Council vote to condemn that country over government abuses during the Sri Lankan civil war. On March 17, XI and his new ministers arranged a meeting with the chief executive of Hong Kong, Tsai Lung, confirming his support for Lung. Within hours of his election, XI discussed cybersecurity in North Korea with U.S. President Barack Obama over the phone. Obama announced the visits of Treasury and State Secretaries Jacob Lew and John F. Kerry to China the following week. Anti-corruption campaign. XI vowed to crack down on corruption almost immediately after he ascended to power at the 18th Party Congress. In his inaugural speech as General Secretary, XI mentioned that fighting corruption was one of the toughest challenges for the party. A few months into his term, XI outlined the 8-point regulation, listing rules intended to curb corruption and waste during official party business. It aimed at stricter discipline on the conduct of party officials. XI also vowed to root out tigers and flies, that is, high-ranking officials and ordinary party functionaries. XI initiated cases against former CMC Vice Chairman Su Keihao and Guo Bixing, former PSC member and security chief Zhou Yongkong and former Hu Jintao chief aide Ling Jihua. Along with new disciplinary chief Wang Qishan, XI's administration spearheaded the formation of centrally dispatched inspection teams. These were essentially cross-jurisdictional squads of officials whose main task was to gain more in-depth understanding of the operations of provincial and local party organizations, and in the process, also enforce party discipline mandated by Beijing. Many of the work teams also had the effect of identifying and initiating investigations of high-ranking officials. Over 100 provincial ministerial-level officials were implicated during a massive nationwide anti-corruption campaign. These included former and current regional officials, leading figures of state-owned enterprises and central government organs, and highly ranked generals in the military. In June 2014, the Shaanxi provincial political establishment was decimated, with 4 officials dismissed within a week from the provincial party organization's top ranks. Within the first 2 years of the campaign alone, over 200,000 low-ranking officials received warnings, fines, and demotions. The campaign has led to the downfall of prominent incumbent and retired CCP officials, including members of the PSC. Xi's anti-corruption campaign is seen by critics, such as The Economist, as a political with the aim of removing potential opponents and consolidating power. Xi's establishment of a new anti-corruption agency, the National Supervision Commission, ranked higher than the Supreme Court, has been described by Amnesty International's East Asia director as a systemic threat to human rights that places tens of millions of people at the mercy of a secretive and virtually unaccountable system that is above the law. Xi has overseen significant reforms of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection, CCP's highest internal control institution. He and CCDI Secretary Wang Qishan further institutionalized CCDI's independence from the day-to-day operations of the CCP, improving its ability to function as a bona fide control body. According to the Wall Street Journal, any anti-corruption punishment to officials at or above the vice-ministerial level need approval from Xi. Another article from the Wall Street Journal said that when he wants to neutralize a political rival, he asks inspectors to prepare hundreds of pages of evidence. The article also said that he sometimes authorizes investigations on close associates of a high-ranking politician to replace them with his own protégés and puts political rivals in less important positions to separate them from their political bases. Reportedly, these tactics have even been used against Wang Qishan, Xi's close friend. Censorship. Since Xi became the CCP General Secretary, censorship, including internet censorship, has been significantly stepped up. Chairing the 2018 China Cyberspace Governance Conference on April 21, 2018, Xi committed to fiercely crack down on criminal offenses including hacking, telecom fraud, and violation of citizens' privacy. During a visit to Chinese state media, Xi stated that party-owned media must hold the family name of the party and that the state media must embody the party's will, safeguard the party's authority. His administration has overseen more internet restrictions imposed in China, and is described as being stricter across the board on speech than previous administrations. Xi has taken a very strong stand to control internet usage inside China, including Google and Facebook, advocating internet censorship in the country under the concept of internet sovereignty. The censorship of Wikipedia has also been stringent. As of April 2019, all versions of Wikipedia have been blocked in China. Likewise, the situation for users of Weibo has been described as a change from fearing that individual posts would be deleted, or at worst one's account, to fear of arrest. A law enacted in September 2013 authorized a 3-year prison term for bloggers who shared more than 500 times any content considered defamatory. The State Internet Information Department summoned a group of influential bloggers to a seminar instructing them to avoid writing about politics, the CCP, or making statements contradicting official narratives. Many bloggers stopped writing about controversial topics, and Weibo went into decline, with much of its readership shifting to WeChat users speaking to very limited social circles. In 2017, telecommunications carriers in China were instructed by the government to block individuals' use of virtual private networks by February 2018. Xi has spoken out against historical nihilism, meaning historical viewpoints that challenge the official line of the CCP. Xi said that one of the reasons for the collapse of the Soviet Union has been historical nihilism. The Cyberspace Administration of China has established a telephone hotline for people to report acts of historical nihilism, while Tao Xiao and Douyin urged its user to report instances of historical nihilism. In May 2021, the CAC reported that it removed 2 million online posts for historical nihilism. Consolidation of power. Political observers have called Xi the most powerful Chinese leader since Mao Zedong, especially since the ending of presidential two-term limits in 2018. Xi has notably departed from the collective leadership practices of his post-Mao predecessors. He has centralized his power and created working groups with himself at the head to subvert government bureaucracy, making himself become the unmistakable central figure of the new administration. Beginning in 2013, the CCP under Xi has created a series of central leading groups, supraministerial steering committees, designed to bypass existing institutions when making decisions, and ostensibly make policy-making a more efficient process. The most notable new body is the Central Leading Group for Comprehensively Deepening Reforms. It has broad jurisdiction over economic restructuring and social reforms, and is said to have displaced some of the power previously held by the State Council and its premier. Xi also became the leader of the Central Leading Group for Internet Security and Informatization, in charge of cybersecurity and Internet policy. The third plenum held in 2013 also saw the creation of the National Security Commission of the CCP, another body chaired by Xi, which commentators have said would help Xi consolidate over national security affairs. In the opinion of at least one political scientist, Xi has surrounded himself with cadres he met while stationed on the coast, Fujian, and Shanghai and in Zhejiang. Control of Beijing is seen as crucial to Chinese leaders. Xi has selected Cai Chi, one of the cadres mentioned above, to manage the capital. Xi has also been believed to have diluted the authority of Premier Li Keqiang, taking authority over the economy which has generally been considered to be the domain of the premier. In 2022, Xi appointed his close ally Wang Xiaohong as the Minister of Public Security, giving him further control over the security establishment. In its sixth plenary session in November 2021, CCP adopted a historical resolution, a kind of document that evaluated the party's history. This was the third of its kind after ones adopted by Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping, and the document for the first time credited Xi as being the main innovator of Xi Jinping thought, while also declaring Xi's leadership as being the key to the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. In comparison with the other historical resolutions, Xi's one did not herald a major change in how the CCP evaluated its history. To accompany the historical resolution, the CCP promoted the terms 2 establishes and 2 safeguards, calling the CCP to unite around and protect Xi's core status within the party. The 20th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, held between 16 to 22 October 2022, has overseen amendments in the CCP constitution and the re-election of Xi as General Secretary of the CCP and Chairman of the CMC for a third term, with the overall result of the Congress being further strengthening of Xi's power. The newly amended CCP constitution included the terms 2 establishes and 2 safeguards, reinforcing Xi's power. It also included concepts promoted by Xi like common prosperity, Chinese-style modernization, and whole process people's democracy. The new Politburo Standing Committee elected just after the CCP Congress was filled almost completely with people close to Xi, with 4 out of the 7 members of the previous PSC including Premier Li Keqiang and CPPCC Chairman Wang Yang stepping down. Li Qiang, a close Xi ally, became the second-ranking member of the PSC, and is expected to become premier in 2023. Other allies of Xi, including Cai Chi, Ding Xuexiang, and Li Xi have also joined the PSC, and are expected to become first secretary of the CCP Secretariat, first vice premier and secretary of the Central Commission for Discipline Inspection respectively. The only remaining members of the previous PSC except XI were Zhao Leji and Wang Huning, though their ranking and positions changed. XI's re-election made him the first party leader since Mao Zedong to serve more than 3 terms, though Deng Xiaoping ruled the country informally for a longer period. Cult of personality. Removal of term limits. Economy and technology. XI was initially seen as a market reformist, and the Third Plenum of the 18th Central Committee under him announced that market forces would begin to play a decisive role in allocating resources. This meant that the state would gradually reduce its involvement in the distribution of capital, and restructure state-owned enterprises to allow further competition, potentially by attracting foreign and private sector players in industries that were previously highly regulated. This policy aimed to address the bloated state sector that had unduly profited from an earlier round of restructuring by purchasing assets at below-market prices, assets that were no longer being used productively. However, by 2017, XI's promise of economic reforms has been said to stall by experts. In 2015, the Chinese stock market bubble popped, which led XI to use state forces to fix the issue. XI has increased state control over China's economy, voicing support for China's state-owned enterprises, while also supporting the country's private sector. He has increased the role of the Central Financial and Economic Affairs Commission at the expense of the State Council. His administration made it easier for banks to issue mortgages, increased foreign participation in the bond market, and increased the national currency renminbi's global role, helping it to join IMF's basket of special drawing right. In the 40th anniversary of the launching of Chinese economic reforms in 2018, he has promised to continue reforms but has warned that nobody can dictate to the Chinese people. XI has also personally made eradicating extreme poverty through targeted poverty alleviation a key goal. In 2021, XI declared a complete victory over extreme poverty, saying that nearly 100 million people have been lifted out of poverty under his tenure, though some experts said that China's poverty threshold was relatively lower than the one set by the World Bank. In 2020, Premier Li Keqiang, citing the National Bureau of Statistics, said that China still had 600 million people living with less than 1,000 yuan a month. Although an article from The Economist said that the methodology NBS used was flawed, stating that the figure took the combined income, which was then equally divided. China's economy has grown under XI, with GDP in nominal terms more than doubling from $8.53 trillion in 2012 to $17.73 trillion in 2021, though the rate of growth has slowed. From 7.9% in 2012 to 6% in 2019. XI has stressed the importance of high-quality growth rather than inflated growth. XI has circulated a policy called dual circulation, meaning reorienting the economy towards domestic consumption while remaining open to foreign trade and investment. XI has also made boosting productivity in the economy a priority. XI has attempted to reform the property sector to combat the steep increase in the property prices and to cut Chinese economy's dependence on the real estate sector. In the 19th CCP National Congress, XI declared houses are built to be inhabited, not for speculation. In 2020, XI's government formulated the 3 Red Lines policy that aimed to deleverage the heavily indebted property sector. XI additionally has supported a property tax, for which he has faced resistance from members of the CCP. XI's administration has promoted Made in China 2025 plan that aims to make China self-reliant in key technologies, although publicly China de-emphasized this plan due to the outbreak of a trade war with the US. Since the outbreak of the trade war in 2018, XI has revived calls for self-reliance, especially on the matters of technology. XI's government has additionally allocated more than $100 billion to support China's efforts at semiconductor independence. The Chinese government has also supported technology companies like Huawei through grants, tax breaks, credit facilities, and other forms of assistance, enabling their rise but also leading to countermeasures by the U.S. In November 2020, The Wall Street Journal reported that XI personally ordered a halt to Ant Group's initial public offering, in reaction to its founder Jack Ma criticizing government regulation in finance. Since 2021, XI has promoted the term common prosperity, a term which he defined as an essential requirement of socialism. He described common prosperity as affluence for all, rather than the few, while also saying it's not egalitarianism. Common prosperity has been used as the justification for large-scale crackdowns and regulations towards the perceived excesses of several sectors, most prominently tech and tutoring industries. The examples of actions taken against tech companies have included fining large tech companies and passing of laws such as the Data Security Law. China also banned private tutoring companies from making profits and teaching school syllabus during weekends and holidays, effectively destroying the whole industry. XI additionally opened a new stock exchange in Beijing targeted for small and medium enterprises, which was another part of his common prosperity campaign. There have also been other numerous cultural regulations, such as limiting video game usage by minors to 90 minutes during weekdays and 3 hours during weekends, complete banning of cryptocurrency, cracking down on idol worship, fandom, and celebrity culture, and cracking down on sissy men. Reforms. Agenda announcement. Legal reforms. Military reforms. Foreign policy. XI has taken a harder line on security issues as well as foreign affairs, projecting a more nationalistic and assertive China on the world stage. His political program calls for a China more united and confident of its own value system and political structure. Foreign analysts and observers have frequently said that XI's main foreign policy objective is to restore China's position on the global stage as a great power. Addressing a regional conference in Shanghai on May 21, 2014, he called on Asian countries to unite and forge a way together, rather than get involved with third-party powers, seen as a reference to the United States. Matters in Asia ultimately must be taken care of by Asians. Asia's problems ultimately must be resolved by Asians, and Asia's security ultimately must be protected by Asians, he told the conference. XI has promoted major country diplomacy, stating that China is already a big power and breaking away from previous Chinese leaders who had a more precautious diplomacy. He has adopted a hawkish foreign policy posture called wolf warrior diplomacy, while his foreign policy thoughts are collectively known as Xi Jinping thought on diplomacy. In March 2021, he said that the East is rising and the West is declining, saying that the power of the Western world was in decline and their COVID-19 response was an example of this, and that China was entering a period of opportunity because of this. In 2022, XI proposed a global security initiative that upheld the term indivisible security, a term also supported by Russia. XI has frequently alluded to community with a shared future for mankind, which Chinese diplomats have said doesn't imply an intention to change the international order, but which foreign observers say China wants a new order that puts it more at the center. Under XI, China has, along with Russia, also focused on increasing relations with the global south in order to blunt the effect of Western sanctions. XI has put an emphasis on increasing China's international discourse power to create a more favorable global opinion of China in the world. In this pursuit, XI has emphasized the need to tell China's story well, meaning expanding China's external propaganda and communications. XI has expanded the focus and scope of the United Front, which aims to consolidate support for CCP in non-CCP elements both inside and outside China, and has accordingly expanded the United Front Work Department. Africa, European Union, India, Japan, Taiwan, Middle East. North Korea, Russia, South Korea, Southeast Asia, United States. Foreign trips as paramount leader. Belt and Road Initiative. National security. XI has devoted a large amount of work towards national security, calling for a holistic national security architecture that encompasses all aspects of the work of the party and the country. During a private talk with U.S. President Obama and Vice President Biden, he said that China had been a target of color revolutions, foreshadowing his focus on national security. Since its creation by XI, the National Security Commission has established local security committees, focusing on dissent. In the name of national security, XI's government has passed numerous laws including a counter-espionage law in 2014, national security and a counter-terrorism law in 2015, a cybersecurity law and a law restricting foreign NGOs in 2016, a national intelligence law in 2017, and a data security law in 2021. Under XI, China's mass surveillance network has dramatically grown, with comprehensive profiles being built for each citizen. Internal Chinese government documents leaked to the press in November 2019 showed that XI repeatedly discussed about Islamic extremism in his speeches, likening it to a virus or a drug that could be only addressed by a period of painful, interventionary treatment. However, he also warned against the discrimination against Uyghurs and rejected proposals to eradicate Islam in China, calling that kind of viewpoint biased, even wrong. Hong Kong. XI has supported and pursued a greater economic integration of Hong Kong to mainland China through projects such as the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. He has pushed for the Greater Bay Area Project, which aims to integrate Hong Kong, Macau, and 9 other cities in Guangdong. XI's push for greater integration has created fears of decreasing freedoms in Hong Kong. XI has supported the Hong Kong government and Chief Executive Carrie Lam against the protesters in the 2019-20 Hong Kong protests. He has defended the Hong Kong police's use of force, saying that we sternly support the Hong Kong police to take forceful actions in enforcing the law, and the Hong Kong judiciary to punish in accordance with the law those who have committed violent crimes. While visiting Macau on December 20, 2019 as part of the 20th anniversary of its return to China, XI warned of foreign forces interfering in Hong Kong and Macau, while also hinting that Macau could be a model for Hong Kong to follow. In 2020, the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress passed a national security law in Hong Kong that dramatically expanded government clampdown over the opposition in the city. This was seen as the culmination of a long-term project under XI to further closely integrate Hong Kong with the mainland. XI visited Hong Kong as president in 2017 and 2022, in the 20th and 25th anniversary of the handover of Hong Kong respectively. In his 2022 visit, he swore in John Lee as chief executive, a former police officer that was backed by the Chinese government to expand control over the city. While in the city, he said Hong Kong had moved from chaos to stability. Since John Lee became chief executive, Hong Kong government officials including Lee himself have shown public displays of loyalty towards XI, similar to the mainland but previously unheard in the city. Human rights. According to the Human Rights Watch, XI has started a broad and sustained offensive on human rights since he became leader in 2012. The HRW also said that repression in China is at its worst level since the Tiananmen Square massacre. Since taking power, XI has cracked down on grassroots activism, with hundreds being detained. He presided over the 709 crackdown on July 9, 2015, which saw more than 200 lawyers, legal assistants, and human rights activists being detained. His term has seen the arrest and imprisonment of activists such as Su Ziyong, as well as numerous others who identified with the New Citizens Movement. Prominent legal activist Pius Haiqiang of the We Equan movement was also arrested and detained. In 2017, the local government of the Jiangxi province told Christians to replace their pictures of Jesus with Xi Jinping as part of a general campaign on unofficial churches in the country. According to local social media, officials transformed them from believing in religion to believing in the party. According to activists, Xi is waging the most severe systematic suppression of Christianity in the country since religious freedom was written into the Chinese constitution in 1982, and according to pastors and a group that monitors religion in China, has involved destroying crosses, burning Bibles, shutting churches and ordering followers to sign papers renouncing their faith. Following several terrorist attacks in Xinjiang in 2013 and 2014, Xi launched the Strike Hard campaign against violent terrorism in 2014, which involved mass detention and surveillance of ethnic Uyghurs there. Xi made an inspection tour in Xinjiang between 27 and April 30 in 2014. The program was massively expanded in 2017. As of 2020, China is holding 1.8 million people, mostly Uyghurs but also including other ethnic and religious minorities, in internment camps in Xinjiang. Various human rights groups and former inmates have described the camps as concentration camps, where Uyghurs and other minorities have been forcibly assimilated into China's majority ethnic Han society. This program has been called a genocide by some observers, while a report by the UN Human Rights Office said they may amount to crimes against humanity. Internal Chinese government documents leaked to the press in November 2019 showed that Xi personally ordered a security crackdown in Xinjiang, saying that the party must show absolutely no mercy and that officials use all the weapons of the people's democratic dictatorship to suppress those infected with the virus of extremism. Xi's exact role in the building of internment camps has not been publicly reported, though he's widely believed to be behind them and his words have been the source for major justifications in the crackdown in Xinjiang. In the Xinjiang police files leaked in 2022, a document quoting Minister of Public Security Zhao Ke suggested that Xi had been aware of the internment camps. COVID-19 pandemic. On January 20, 2020, Xi commented for the first time on the emerging COVID-19 pandemic in Wuhan, saying that ordering efforts to curb the spread of the virus. He gave Premier Li Keqiang some responsibility over the COVID-19 response, in what has been suggested by the Wall Street Journal was an attempt to potentially insulate himself from criticism if the response failed. The government initially responded to the pandemic with a lockdown and censorship, with the initial response causing widespread backlash within China. He met with Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the Director General of the World Health Organization, on January 28. Der Spiegel reported that in January 2020 Xi pressured Tedros Adhanom to hold off on issuing a global warning about the outbreak of COVID-19 and hold back information on human-to-human transmission of the virus, allegations denied by the WHO. On February 5, Xi met with Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen in Beijing, the first foreign leader allowed into China since the outbreak. After the COVID-19 outbreak got under control in Wuhan, Xi visited the city on March 10. Since then, Xi has favored what has officially been termed dynamic zero-COVID policy that aims to control and suppress the virus as much as possible within the country's borders. This has involved local lockdowns and mass testing. While initially credited for China's suppression of the COVID-19 outbreak, the policy was later criticized by foreign and some domestic observers for being out of touch with the rest of the world and taking a heavy toll on the economy. This approach has especially come under criticism during a 2022 lockdown on Shanghai, which forced millions to their homes and damaged the city's economy, denting the image of Li Qiang, close Xi ally and party secretary of the city. Conversely, Xi has said that the policy was designed to protect people's life safety. On July 23, 2022, the National Health Commission reported that XI and other top leaders have taken the local COVID-19 vaccines. At the 20th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, XI confirmed the continuation of the zero-COVID policy. Environmental policy. In September 2020, XI announced that China will strengthen its 2030 climate target, peak emissions before 2030 and aim to achieve carbon neutrality before 2060. If accomplished, this would lower the expected rise in global temperature by 0.20–0.3 degrees C, the biggest single reduction ever estimated by the Climate Action Tracker. XI mentioned the link between the COVID-19 pandemic and nature destruction as one of the reasons for the decision, saying that humankind can no longer afford to ignore the repeated warnings of nature. On September 27, Chinese scientists presented a detailed plan how to achieve the target. In September 2021, XI announced that China will not build coal-fired power projects abroad, which was said to be potentially pivotal in reducing emissions. The Belt and Road Initiative did not include financing such projects already in the first half of 2021. Xi Jinping did not attend 26 Colombian pesos personally. However, a Chinese delegation led by climate change envoy Xie Zhenhua did attend. During the conference, the United States and China agreed on a framework to reduce GHG emission by cooperating on different measures. Governance style. Known as a very secretive leader, little is known publicly about how Xi makes political decisions, or how he came to power. Xi's speeches generally get released months or years after they are made. Xi has also never given a press conference since becoming paramount leader, except in rare joint press conferences with foreign leaders. The Wall Street Journal reported that Xi prefers micromanaging in governance, in contrast to previous leaders such as Hu Jintao, who left details of major policies to lower-ranking officials. Reportedly, ministerial officials try to get Xi's attention in various ways, with some creating slideshows and audio reports. The Wall Street Journal also reported that Xi created a performance review system in 2018 to give evaluations on officials on various measures, including loyalty. According to The Economist, Xi's orders have generally been vague, leaving lower-level officials to interpret his words. Chinese state media Xinhua news agency said that Xi personally reviews every draft of major policy documents, and all reports submitted to him, no matter how late in the evening, were returned with instructions the following morning. Xi called for officials to practice self-criticism, which, according to observers, is in order to appear less corrupt and more popular among the people. Political positions. Chinese Dream. Xi and CCP ideologues coined the phrase Chinese Dream to describe his overarching plans for China as its leader. Xi first used the phrase during a high-profile visit to the National Museum of China on November 29, 2012, where he and his standing committee colleagues were attending a National Revival exhibition. Since then, the phrase has become the signature political slogan of the Xi era. The origin of the term Chinese Dream is unclear. While the phrase has been used before by journalists and scholars, some publications have posited the term likely drew its inspiration from the concept of the American Dream. The Economist noted the abstract and seemingly accessible nature of the concept with no specific overarching policy stipulations may be a deliberate departure from the jargon-heavy ideologies of his predecessors. Xi has linked the Chinese Dream with the phrase Great Rejuvenation of the Chinese Nation. Cultural revival. In recent years, top political leaders of the CCP such as Xi have overseen the rehabilitation of ancient Chinese philosophical figures like Han Fei into the mainstream of Chinese thought alongside Confucianism. At a meeting with other officials in 2013, he quoted Confucius, saying, "He who rules by virtue is like the pole star, it maintains its place, and the multitude of stars pay homage." While visiting Shandong, the birthplace of Confucius, in November, he told scholars that the Western world was suffering a crisis of confidence and that the CCP has been the loyal inheritor and promoter of China's outstanding traditional culture. According to several analysts, Xi's leadership has been characterized by a resurgence of the ancient political philosophy legalism. Han Fei gained new prominence with favorable citations. One sentence of Han Fei's that Xi quoted appeared thousands of times in official Chinese media at the local, provincial, and national levels. Xi has additionally supported the Neo-Confucian philosopher Wang Yangming, telling local leaders to promote him. Xi has also overseen a revival of traditional Chinese culture, breaking apart from CCP's path, which had often attacked it. He has called traditional culture the soul of the nation and the foundation of the CCP's culture. Hanfu, the traditional dress of Han Chinese, has seen a revival under him, associated with the revival of traditional culture. Ideology. Xi has said that only socialism can save China. Xi has also declared Deng Xiaoping's socialism with Chinese characteristics to be the only correct path to realize national rejuvenation. According to BBC News, while the CCP was perceived to have abandoned its communist ideology since it initiated economic reforms in the 1970s, Xi is believed by some observers to be more believing in the idea of a communist project, being described as a Marxist-Leninist by former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd. Subscribing to the view that socialism will eventually triumph over capitalism, he has said Marx and Engels's analysis of the basic contradictions of capitalist society is not outdated, nor is the historical materialist view that capitalism is bound to die out and socialism bound to win. Xi has overseen the increase of socialist political economy with Chinese characteristics as a major study topic for academics in China, aiming to decrease the influence of Western-influenced economics. Though he has called a stop to what he considers to be disorderly expansion of capital, he has also said that it is necessary to stimulate the vitality of capital of all types, including non-public capital, and give full play to its positive role. Xi has supported greater CCP control over the PRC, saying government, the military, society and schools, north, south, east and west, the party leads them all. During the 100th anniversary of the CCP in 2021, he said that without the Communist Party of China, there would be no new China and no national rejuvenation, and that the leadership of the party is the defining feature of socialism with Chinese characteristics and constitutes the greatest strength of this system. He has said that China, despite many setbacks, has achieved great progress under the CCP, saying that socialism with Chinese characteristics has become the standard bearer of 21st century socialist development. However, he has also warned that it will take a long time for China under the CCP to complete its rejuvenation, and during this time frame, party members must be vigilant to not let CCP rule collapse. Xi has ruled out a multi-party system for China, saying that constitutional monarchy, imperial restoration, parliamentarism, a multi-party system and a presidential system, we considered them, tried them, but none worked. However, Xi considers China to be a democracy, saying that China's socialist democracy is the most comprehensive, genuine and effective democracy. China's definition of democracy is different from liberal democracies and is rooted in Marxism-Leninism, and is based on the phrases people's democratic dictatorship and democratic centralism. Xi has additionally coined the term whole process people's democracy, which he said was about having the people as masters. Foreign analysts and observers have widely disputed that China is a democracy, saying that it is a one-party authoritarian state and Xi an authoritarian leader. Some observers have called Xi a dictator, citing the large centralization of power around him unseen compared to his predecessors. Document number 9. Xi Jinping thought. Personal life. Family. Xi's first marriage was to Ke Lingling, the daughter of Ke Hua, China's ambassador to the United Kingdom in the early 1980s. They divorced within a few years. The two were said to fight almost every day, and after the divorce Ke moved to England. In 1987, Xi married the prominent Chinese folk singer Peng Laiwan. Xi and Peng were introduced by friends as many Chinese couples were in the 1980s. Xi was reputedly academic during their courtship, inquiring about singing techniques. Peng Laiwan, a household name in China, was better known to the public than Xi until his political elevation. The couple frequently lived apart due largely to their separate professional lives. Peng has played a much more visible role as China's First Lady compared to her predecessors. For example, Peng hosted U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama on her high-profile visit to China in March 2014. Xi and Peng have a daughter named Xi Mings, who graduated from Harvard University in the spring of 2015. While at Harvard, she used a pseudonym and studied psychology and English. Xi's family has a home in Jade Spring Hill, a garden and residential area in northwestern Beijing run by the CMC. In June 2012, Bloomberg News reported that members of Xi's extended family have substantial business interests, although there was no evidence he had intervened to assist them. The Bloomberg website was blocked in mainland China in response to the article. Since Xi embarked on an anti-corruption campaign, the New York Times reported members of his family were selling their corporate and real estate investments beginning in 2012. Relatives of highly placed Chinese officials, including 7 current and former senior leaders of the Politburo of the CCP, have been named in the Panama Papers, including Deng Xiaogui, Xi's brother-in-law. Deng had 2 shell companies in the British Virgin Islands while Xi was a member of the Politburo Standing Committee, but they were dormant by the time Xi became General Secretary of the CCP in November 2012. Personality. Peng described Xi as hardworking and down-to-earth. When he comes home, I've never felt as if there's some leader in the house. In my eyes, he's just my husband. Xi was described in a 2011 Washington Post article by those who know him as pragmatic, serious, cautious, hardworking, down-to-earth and low-key. He was described as a good hand at problem-solving and seemingly uninterested in the trappings of high office. Public image. It is hard to gauge the opinion of the Chinese public on Xi, as no independent surveys exist in China and social media is heavily censored. However, he is believed to be widely popular in the country. According to a 2014 poll sponsored by the Harvard Kennedy School's Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation, Xi ranked 9 out of 10 in domestic approval ratings. A YouGov poll released in July 2019 found that about 22% of people in mainland China list Xi as the person they admire the most, a plurality, although this figure was less than 5% for residents of Hong Kong. In the spring of 2019, the Pew Research Center made a survey on confidence on Xi Jinping among 6 country medians based on Australia, India, Indonesia, Japan, Philippines, and South Korea. The survey indicated that a median 29% have confidence in Xi Jinping to do the right thing regarding world affairs, meanwhile a median of 45% have no confidence. These numbers are slightly higher than those of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. A poll by Politico and Morning Consult in 2021 found that 5% of Americans have a favorable opinion of Xi, 38% unfavorable, 17% no opinion and 40%, a plurality, never hearing of him. In 2017, The Economist named him the most powerful person in the world. In 2018, Forbes ranked him as the most powerful and influential person in the world, replacing Russian President Vladimir Putin, who had been ranked so for 5 consecutive years. In 2016 and 2021, Reporters Without Borders, an international non-profit and non-governmental organization with the stated aim of safeguarding the right to freedom of information, included XI among the list of press freedom predators. Unlike previous Chinese leaders, Chinese state media has given a more encompassing view of XI's private life, although still strictly controlled. According to Xinhua news agency, XI would swim 1 kilometer and walk every day as long as there was time, and is interested in foreign writers, especially Russian. He is known to love films and TV shows such as Saving Private Ryan, The Departed, The Godfather and Game of Thrones, also praising the independent filmmaker Jia Zhang. The Chinese state media has also cast him as a fatherly figure and a man of the people, determined to stand up for Chinese interests. Honors. Key to the City. XI holds a Key to the City, an honor granted to attending guests to symbolize their significance, in Muscatine, Iowa, United States. Montego Bay, Jamaica. Muscatine, Iowa, United States. San Jose, Costa Rica. Mexico City, Mexico. Buenos Aires, Argentina. Prague, Czech Republic. Madrid, Spain. Works. XI, Jinping. Theory and Practice on Modern Agriculture. Fuzhou, Fujian Education Press. XI, Jinping. A Tentative Study on China's Rural Marketization. Beijing, Tsinghua University. Archived from the original on January 17, 2013. XI, Jinping. Zhejiang Xinyu. Hangzhou, Zhengzhong People's Publishing House. ISBN 9787213035081. XI, Jinping. The Governance of China. Volume I, Beijing, Foreign Languages Press. ISBN 9787119090573. XI, Jinping. General Secretary XI Jinping Important Speech Series. Volume I, Beijing, People's Publishing House and Study Publishing House. ISBN 9787119090573. XI, Jinping. General Secretary XI Jinping Important Speech Series. Volume 2. Beijing, People's Publishing House and Study Publishing House. ISBN 9787514706284. XI, Jinping. The Governance of China. Volume 2. Beijing, Foreign Languages Press. ISBN 9787119111643. XI, Jinping. Quotations from Chairman XI Jinping. Some units of the PLA. XI, Jinping. The Belt and Road Initiative. Beijing, Foreign Languages Press. ISBN 978-7119119960. XI, Jinping. The Governance of China. Volume 3. Beijing, Foreign Languages Press. ISBN 9787119124117. XI, Jinping. On Propaganda and Ideological Work of Communist Party. Beijing, Central Party Literature Press. ISBN 9787507347791. XI, Jinping. On History of the Communist Party of China. Beijing, Central Party Literature Press. ISBN 9787507348033. XI, Jinping. The Governance of China. Volume 4. Beijing, Foreign Languages Press. ISBN 9787119130941. Notes. References.